talking about what book of the Bible? Yes, the Old Testament, and yes, Genesis within the Old Testament. Smart Alec. And we finished last week. We have been talking about Adam and his descendants, and Noah and his descendants, and Abraham and his son and his grandson for months. Now, we have got them all to where? Egypt. And how many of them are there now? A lot more than there used to be. It says that there are 70 people that come out of Canaan into Egypt. So the 12 sons of Jacob and their wives and their children, everyone totals about 70. And they settle in the land of Goshen, which you don't need to remember. It's just a word. In the north of Egypt, where the delta separates and where the fields are very fertile. And they're there because there's a famine, but they aren't experiencing the famine because there's plenty of food in Egypt, because Joseph was given wisdom by God, right? And then the Pharaoh put him in charge, and he stored up the food, so no one in Egypt went hungry. That's where we left off. Now, I'm going to read you the beginning of Exodus because it's good. And Joseph died, and all of his brothers, and all that generation, and the children of Israel were fruitful, and they increased abundantly. And they multiplied, and they became very mighty, and the land was filled with them. So there's a lot of them now. And then there arose up a new king over Egypt, who knew not Joseph. So all that goodwill is gone. And he said to his people, look, the people of the children of Israel are more than us and stronger than us. So let us be smart in dealing with them, so that they don't multiply more, and if there's a war, they might side with our enemies and defeat us, and we will be brought to nothing. So, what are we going to do? This king says, let's make them slaves, and then we can keep them down. So he does. And they build great cities for him in Egypt. We don't think they built the pyramids, but it's kind of nice to think of them, and it's easy to find movies showing them dragging huge rocks here and there and all over the place. I recommend, I think, most of the Moses movies that have been made, but that's beside the point. You didn't come to church to hear a movie review, did you? So they make them slaves, but the more they afflicted them, the more they made them work, the more the children of Israel multiplied and grew. So the Egyptians were getting very, very nervous. And, well, then it talks about how they made them work, and this is good. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And everything they did, whatever they forced them to do, all their work, they made them do it not easily. No 40-hour week, no union wages, no hour lunch break, but hard work with no breaks. And then the king decided they're still multiplying too much, so we're going to make sure that they can't anymore. Any male children that are born, we're going to kill them. And this is where we get Moses, because when the king is trying to kill all the male children, what is Moses' mother going to do? Hide him. And I'm guessing you all know this story. What does she do? Where does she put him? I see you know this story. Yes, well, you coat the basket with tar to make sure that it's waterproof. This is true. And then she put Moses in the river. And who was put in charge of watching him to make sure that he was okay? His sister. Which of you are big sisters? All right. So, that's your job, right? Now what happens? The basket goes down the river a little bit. And who finds it? Who finds it? Yeah. The queen, I think it's the daughter of Pharaoh, but it might be the queen. It's the princess, it's a woman of the royal family of Egypt. And she finds the baby, and we assume maybe she didn't have a child of her own, because she has compassion on the baby. She knows that it's a Hebrew child, because she sees the little girl who's watching, and the little girl, she comes out, the big sister. She says, "Do you want me to find someone to take care of him for you?" And she says, "Yes." So the little girl goes and gets her mother, and she comes and cares for the baby. It's as though she's the nanny for her own child in the home of the king. And so Moses grows up as a prince of Egypt. There's a movie called that. It's actually pretty good. Fun songs. But he grows up, and we're going to leave it there for now. He's a Jew. He should have been killed when he was a baby by the king's command, but instead he's saved to do great things. With that, we'll stop.